like many of us artists, I too have always thought it would be cool to make a manga, but there are a lot of things in making a manga that you have to work on to bring your ideas to life. Obviously, you know, throughout your art journey, you tend to make small comics and short manga panels. But if we're talking legit attempting a manga, I have tried this a total of 3 times for 3 competitions. Oh, well, I guess you didn't win any. That may be correct. However, I want to share them as only 2 or 3 friends have ever seen them before, besides me and the companies. So, yeah, now some of you will see it too. It's an exclusive release. Also, I think it's really interesting to see the skills that I've built up each time and how my art has improved little by little. So the next manga I make will be even better than the last. So you guys, we just have to never give up. Also, I did create a webtoon in the middle of these, but I'll be making a separate video for that if you're curious about these 2 characters. And I made all of these mangas in Clip Studio Paint. I've learned a lot about how to use it over this time. I'm going to have some timestamps just so that you can skip to a different manga, or just to the end where I tell you the process I take when making a manga myself. The first one I made was in 2024 to 2025, and it was the Wordless Word Manga Contest by Kadokawa. I actually made a short story off on my phone about them a really long time ago. I had written it out to be kind of like a poem story thing, but it's a bit embarrassing, honestly, but who cares? I'm showing you anyway. Here it is. Okay, you don't need to pause to read it, but it's that. And honestly, I debated at one point to make an animatic and voiceover, but I don't know, I was still scared of posting anything big, so I didn't. But in this case, it was a wordless contest, so I had to try and translate the story without text, which is easier said than done, but on the whole, I don't think it turned out too terrible. My sketches for this were once again diabolical, but they got the job done. As you can see, I was still not using my brain for the backgrounds, since webtoons are okay using 3D models, but specifically for manga, well, it's a bit of a different story. I mean, some are okay, but for the most part, if you do, you have to go over and redraw, or you have to edit photos and things like that, rather than actually just slapping a Clip Studio 3D model in there. So this was my first mistake I learned from. Using the screen tones and getting used to them was fun though. But yeah, it was a start. My next manga was a bit shorter this time, and was focused on the theme of dreams. It was the Silent Manga Auditions SMA 23. Honestly, I don't remember how I made up the story. I should have written it down, but a lot of my unshown OCs are themed with birds, so I wanted to make a new one to practice my wing art. It was also silent, so I wanted to portray the feeling of him having his dream of being able to fly, just like his family and friends, even though he has small wings, so they helped to make him bigger ones. In this case, there wasn't many background parts, and the parts I did do I actually made out of line art of shapes. Although I think it's pretty obvious to see that. It's so messy. But my art was slowly improving, and I enjoyed trying out the tone brushes with a bit less aggression than the previous one. So all in all, it wasn't perfect, but I really enjoyed making it, even if it was a bit messy. Now finally, the most recent manga I made. This was the Kadokawa World Manga Contest, and the one I spent the most time on. There was 2 categories, and the one I chose had no specific theme, and you were able to choose to add text or not, which I decided I would include this time. I'd practiced adding text into Clip Studio from the webtoon chapters I'd made, so some parts were definitely easier than others, and after all this time my flow had gotten a bit better, setting out the pages and figuring out how to arrange the layers. However, for this one, I went a little further and decided to make 3D models for the 2 rooms that the story was going to be based in. It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, as even if I made them more on the blocky side, it didn't matter because I was going to draw over all of them anyway. So after properly writing out the script, drawing out the very sketchy sketches, this time I took the painstakingly slow time to draw out all of the backgrounds before anything else, as it was very important for me to set the vibe of the story to help people understand the setting. I think this really was the better move for me because I don't know how I would have done it any other way. I did try to collect a bunch of Clip Studio assets and then draw over them at first, which you can do, and I did for like some of the books and small objects. But personally, I wanted to actually make the rooms to what I was imagining, and the best way for me was through Blender. And my skills at drawing backgrounds are not great, so I had to rely on a 3D program. If you guys would like, honestly, even though I'm only at this skill level on Blender, I was thinking of making a video on how I learned the basics, but please let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. But yeah, even just doing that and getting a little help from 1 or 2 Clip Studio poses, I was able to create something I was pretty proud of. My screen tone skills did kinda stay the same though, but I think they look pretty good. Even though it didn't win anything, honestly looking back from the first manga, there's so much improvement, and the next one is going to be a step up. So now I'm going to go over a couple of tips and tricks so that you, yes you, can also be on your way to start your manga journey. First of all, let me go over my basic order of working on something like this. As you don't want to be going back and forth and getting overwhelmed, I would also recommend starting small. Even if you have big ideas, big world building, just lots of general cool ideas, you will burn out, so just making like no more than 10 pages at first would be a good place to start. Number 1, creating the general story idea and thinking about the characters. This step is important, and it's good to take small notes and do small sketches. Don't be too serious with it at all at this stage, think of different avenues and play around with ideas. Number 2, creating the script. Once you have some ideas floating around and a spark of inspiration, it's time to write your script. You may have to rewrite parts and get your friends to read it over to get some feedback before you jump into everything. Remember to look at it from the perspective of someone not knowing anything about your characters and the world setting and see if it makes sense. Also, focus on the feeling that you want to portray in each scene. This really is one of the most important parts, but at the same time, don't panic, because you're just starting out and storytelling takes a while to get better at. I too am still practicing my writing skills, and that's why my video scripts are so bad. It's also a good idea to make a basic character sheet, even just one drawing, so that you can use this for reference. Number 3, setting up your canvas. In my case, I use Clip Studio Paint, and here are my settings. Although you can do 300 dpi if it's not for print, to be honest, but this was just for the settings for the Kadokawa competition, so it's in Japanese format. So if you're interested in that, these are the settings. And, you know, if you're just making a manga for the first time and it's not that serious, honestly, just using any B4 size page is no problem. But I would recommend having a double check, and also for webtoon specifically, the whole thing is different. So again, I might make another video on that later. Number 4, sketching it out. This really is the part where you can play around, move squares, move text, and make sure they look okay for when you place the characters. Again, getting a friend or two to look over everything if you can is really helpful. Making dynamic sketches and angles and thinking of interesting ways to read is also a great touch. Also remember, if you're doing the Japanese format, it's right to left, up to down, so make sure the eye follows this when reading. Also, after doing this, it would be a good idea to add in some of the manga material panels that they have available, or draw out your own so that you can focus on the space you have for the next sections. Number 5. Backgrounds. Now, at this stage, I like to work out the backgrounds, since sometimes some angles can look cooler than others, and I might need to change the poses of the characters depending on this. As much as the character is very, very important, it is also good to set the scene. So, as you've seen in my recent manga, the way that I like to do it is either using some free Clip Studio assets and drawing over them, making your own in Blender, or 3D tools like SketchUp, and then drawing over it, or photographs, although I don't have much experience with that. If you are super talented with backgrounds though, of course you can just freestyle this and draw it, so it's totally up to you. Adding angles and different shots can help build tension and help pace the story. Number 6. Character line art. Now this part really is just what it says on the tin. It's one of the hardest parts in my opinion, and takes the most time. This is why you want to start with a short manga, so that you can build up your speed of drawing the same character multiple times. Also, use a pen that you find the most comfortable. Honestly, the G pen never fails me in getting clean lines. Number 7. Text boxes. Now this stage could be here or after number 8, but it depends how much or how little there is. It's not too serious and it's quite easy to do on Clip Studio at least. If you were to do it manually on another drawing program, it might be best to do this part last, as it does get a bit tedious without the text box tools. Number 8. Screen tones and shading. Yay, you've nearly reached the end. This really is just a matter of how much screen toning and shading you want to give it. I know some mangas are light and only use a little, whereas some are a lot more busy and use a lot of shading. So this kind of really is up to preferences and what kind of emotions you want to convey. You can use a selection of tonal brushes, or you can manually fill sections with the screen tone settings they have in Clip Studio Paint. I usually colour both the background and the characters together, since you can build up darker and lighter points to create a more dramatic effect and make sure they don't clash too much. There are also screen tones such as flowers and bubbles, and options that can give a basic scene a bit of life so it's not just an empty square. But empty squares have their own place. Number 9. Woo, you're basically done. But now it's time for finishing touches. Blurring out sections to make it softer, or just cleaning up. This stage is just adding extra details. Maybe you want to add some more flowers, or you want to edit the text to a different font for a different emotion. And number 10. You've finished! Woo, I'm so proud of you. Look at you go, you've just made your first manga. It's okay if it doesn't go to plan the first time, and it really does take a lot of getting used to, but with enough time and practice, you'll get there. Okay, oh my god, I've rambled way too much. I really wasn't planning on making a video this long, and it wasn't supposed to be a how-to, but here we are. It somehow ended up like that. I'm not very good at explaining, but I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless. Thank you so much for watching.